brain food, brain enhancing supplements that help improve neurocognition. And so basically smart supplements is what the industry will call nootropics. And when we think about preventing canine cognitive disorder, and when we think about old cat brain, old dog brain, there are some foods that can certainly, lots of foods that can be added in, but there's some supplements that you can begin thinking about. And if you have a senior, instituting them before you see symptoms is a good idea.
All right, so jumping into kind of the first one, this is actually one of my favorite ones, believe it or not. I've been administering this for a very long time, MCT oil. Now, holy smokes, the research around MCT oil right now, it's it seems like every single few months there's a paper that's coming out on this, and there's a lot of research when it comes to the dog space and MCT oil. But do you want to explain quickly like what MCT oil
is? So MCT oil, medium chain triglycerides, are a component in coconut oil. And the beautiful ladies at CocoTherapy, you see that bottle there, have donated a bottle of MCTs for today's Inside Scoop episode. They're lovely ladies. They actually have been my clients in Chicago for 15 plus years. Their parents and grandparents have a coconut farm in the Philippines, so it's a family-owned business. And coconut oil can be refined and extracted, and MCT oil come out of it. And CocoTherapy's MCT oil, they specifically make it for dogs and cats. Now, you can certainly use human MCT oil, but MCT oil in general nourishes the brain in a way, it provides fuel for the brain in a way that other types of foods don't. And so MCT oil is one of the things that we first learned about when we did Dog Cancer Series and went to Keto Pet Sanctuary. They did a ton of MCTs because it helps keep animals in ketosis, but it also literally provides brain food. The nice thing about MCT oil, and some people get nervous about MCTs because they say, oh my gosh, it's just basically a source of extra healthy fat. Yes, it is, but it doesn't require the pancreas to secrete lipase. So there's no pancreatic stress. So for people that say, listen, I'm nervous about it creating pancreatitis, don't be nervous because lipase is not required. It's passively absorbed to the GI tract. However, Rodney, talk a little bit about why you want to start slow on the dose in terms of your conversation with Dave Asprey.
Yeah, we've had this conversation before. I have biohacker Dave Asprey, who makes the famous coffee Bulletproof, I know, in the western side of America, where they combine a little bit of coffee with some grass-fed butter and some MCT. Dave said it best, you can get disaster pants if you're not careful with this stuff, because although it's derived from coconuts, I think the big thing that a lot of people think is, oh, this must be exactly like coconut oil. It looks like coconut oil. It's got a picture of a coconut on the bottle. So I'll just, as I use my normal coconut oil, when I'm using tablespoons of this stuff, you got to be careful there. I think, according to Dave, what was it, every 8 pounds of coconuts it takes to make 1 pound of MCT? Yes. So just remember, it is super, super condensed, so you don't, and I read in the comment section somebody was afraid to use it because they said of the disaster with the digestive system. Yeah. So I mean, start very slow. You can see here where it says half a teaspoon per 10 pounds of body weight on there. Man, you could start even lower. If you've got a large dog, start with a quarter of a teaspoon. Start with you don't have to follow these exact dosages. And like you said, the other, and you've already addressed it, the other issue, of course, is a lot of people are worried about pancreatitis because they hear fat. So well done sort of hitting on that point. Now, MCT, there was a couple of studies, and I wish I had the ability to publish them all here, right? One of the big studies that we know about was MCT in the olden days that they gave to dogs with cognitive issues in combination with omega-3 fatty acids. Now, we'll be talking about omega-3 further, and also just a heads up, Inside Scoopers, a lot of these supplements can cross back and forth, meaning they could go into a lot of categories, but we would have had 400 slides if we had to keep bringing these up. Also, you don't have to have a senior dog to be doing this either, right? True. Like MCT can be used in many, many different assets of health and diseases. I know there's also a lot of research right now, Dr. Becker, when it comes to MCT and seizures. Is there not?
Yes, and in fact, MCTs, that's one of the things that has been put into some ultra-processed foods, for basically neurocare. The problem with adding any supplement to ultra-processed food is you have to think about dose, you have to think about stability, you have to think about quality. Are the feed grade supplements where you want to be in terms of absorption, digestion, sourcing, country of origin, all those questions that we have about a lot of the raw materials going into ultra-processed food. I'm not a fan of spending a ton of money on a prescription diet that has a little bit of MCT oil. I'm a huge fan of feeding a lower glycemic diet for seizuring animals, basically a very low to no carb diet, and adding MCT oil. That to me is a much more logical approach. And actually, standard of care for humans, especially pediatric epilepsy, MCT oil now a regularly recommended thing for helping to use food as medicine to decrease seizure potential. So absolutely happens with animals as well. So it's a nice addition. I just started Krosno on MCT oil, my ancient kitty, and I'm literally doing a drop. So I didn't start. He's really thin because he's old. He's less than 10 pounds. So I'm just putting a drop on his raw food several times a day, no loose stools. But you do want to make sure that you start literally with drops if you have a small animal. And then you're watching bowels to make sure that you don't create loose poop.
You know, one of the things too is that once you start to understand, and thank shout out to the people at Keto Pets that taught us this. Once you start to understand, taught myself this. Once you start to understand macronutrients, you understand the benefits of MCT, but it's not just MCT, right? Like I know Purina was very famous for that study that they came out with where they had a bag of ultra processed food, they added MCT into it, and they saw a seizure reduction. So everybody went running to MCT and started pouring MCT on top of their regular diets, maybe didn't see the effects of like seizure decline, let's say, or cognitive improvement. And that's because if you get into the research and the data behind, let's say, seizures as an example, it's the distribution of macronutrients, higher fat, lower protein, lower carbohydrates, different reaction in the body, different insulin response in the body, therefore an improvement when it comes to seizures. So it's not like taking chocolate cake, as our old friend Daniel would say, and pouring MCT on it, and my dog's never going to seizure again, because that would have, that would give you an ill effect. But unbelievable for cognitive performance, unbelievable for the brain, as you say, with ketones, and Dr. Becker, as you alluded to earlier,